this fourth meeting, conference, let's say, that we organized within the Forum Gran Sasso. Unfortunately, Professor Dino Mastrocola, I have no news actually from him, but yesterday he was ill, and I was expecting for that he was here. But I'm sure that I bring his regards and welcome to all the participants here in Teramo. And we recognize the long travel and journey that you have been doing to reach us in this important annual event that is becoming more and more important for our university as well, for the possibility also to network and to bridge more our communities with the communities in Africa. I stop here also because I have another contribution later on related to the framework that is behind this event, which is the Teramos Charter, and welcome to all again.
Thank you very much for that opening address. Next to come to the floor, we have Bishop Lorenzo Luigi, Bishop of the RT Teramo Diocese. Bishop, the floor is yours.
Buongiorno a tutti, grazie davvero di cuore per questa vostra presenza qui a Teramo, davvero un evento importante di speranza per il futuro. La collaborazione tra il continente africano e l'Europa è davvero un ponte decisivo per il futuro dell'umanità. Io vorrei davvero che possiamo proseguire sempre con più intensità con altri momenti, ma soprattutto di condivisione dei nostri percorsi di ricerca e di impegno per il futuro. Saluto tutti i rettori, i rappresentanti dei rettori, gli ambasciatori che sono qui presenti. Vorrei cogliere l'occasione ancora una volta per ringraziare il Ministero per gli Affari Esteri, la Direzione Generale per la Cooperazione, la rappresentanza italiana della Commissione Europea e poi l'ICOMOS, l'ICOM, NUIDOA, tante realtà che hanno davvero voluto condividere insieme questo percorso, e naturalmente l'Università di Teramo. Io vorrei soltanto ricordare che la cooperazione universitaria è una via privilegiata per lo sviluppo dei popoli. E io sono molto ecco, va bene. Sì. E dicevo, la cooperazione universitaria è una via privilegiata per lo sviluppo dei popoli. Abbiamo fatto poco, possiamo fare molto di più. Ecco, vi chiedo davvero questo grande dono per tutti i nostri giovani, per il futuro dei vostri popoli, dei nostri popoli, perché anche l'Europa è in difficoltà. Non è in difficoltà il continente africano, è in difficoltà anche l'Europa. Ecco, insieme e soprattutto rilanciando con entusiasmo, con fiducia la cooperazione universitaria. Per cui davvero ringrazio le università del continente africano, europeo. Adesso ascolteremo anche i rappresentanti della CRUI, la conferenza dei rettori universitari italiani, il professor Tira, che ecco, vedo che è già collegato con noi. Tutti insieme possiamo davvero, dobbiamo avere questa certezza, possiamo costruire un mondo migliore. Ciò che stiamo vedendo e assistendo non è l'ultima parola. Ecco, mi permetto di dirlo così con molta amicizia, possiamo fare meglio, possiamo individuare prospettive nuove per il continente europeo e africano. Siamo qui per questo. Altrimenti saremo qui soltanto per una fraterna convivialità, ma che certamente è bella per noi, ma di scarso interesse per i nostri fratelli e sorelle, soprattutto per i nostri giovani. Ecco, davvero pensiamo ai nostri ragazzi. Ho visto anche mentre entravo qui in università, tanti studenti che stanno partecipando a questo momento di riflessione, per cui davvero grazie, grazie, grazie di cuore a voi qui presenti e a tutti gli enti che hanno reso possibile questo nostro convenire per la quarta volta, ma io spero che possa essere ancora così lontano il periodo in cui ci ritroviamo per fare passi in avanti nel servizio alle nuove generazioni. Grazie e buon lavoro a tutti.
Grazie, Dean Mastracola. Next to the floor, from ICOMOS, Italia, we'd like to call Mr. Maurizio De Stefano.
Buongiorno, buongiorno a tutti, spero che il mio audio sia sufficiente. Ringrazio innanzitutto gli organizzatori del forum, il magnifico rettore Mastrocola e tutti gli amici che ho avuto già opportunità di conoscere, in particolare Monsignor Lorenzo Leuzzi, con il quale sono stato a Lampedusa nel 2021, condividendo i temi di cui oggi in parte parleremo. Un particolare apprezzamento alla Commissione europea, che sottolinea l'importanza di questo tema a livello internazionale, e soprattutto al nostro Ministero degli Esteri, che ci segue con gli uffici della cooperazione internazionale. Saluto tutti i diplomatici, gli ambasciatori presenti, ai quali è affidata la voce di queste nostre attività culturali. Abbiamo già avuto modo di affrontare questi temi, come dicevo, negli anni scorsi, in occasione soprattutto nel 2019 della conferenza dei rettori delle università africane. Oggi probabilmente, a distanza di così poco tempo, ci troviamo di fronte a realtà molto diverse. Abbiamo avuto prima 2 anni di pandemia e ritenevamo di poterla affrontare anche in paesi così difficili. Oggi ci troviamo di fronte a cambiamenti climatici che ci impongono scelte molto complesse anche nel campo del patrimonio culturale e soprattutto i venti di guerra sui quali stiamo oggi confrontandoci e che hanno indotto crisi molto più urgenti, quali quelle energetiche, alimentari, e che ci impongono un taglio di approccio verso i giovani che possa dare loro l'opportunità di guardare a questi problemi con serenità. Significa che gli obiettivi dell'Agenda 2030 e 2050 sono messi a forte rischio. Investire in ricerca e formazione verso i giovani è un obbligo e solo attraverso i nostri formatori, le accademie, le università, potremo assicurarci scambi innanzitutto culturali, ma di riverbero economico ed operativo immediato. L'Europa fa molto per questo obiettivo, ma occorre fare ancora di più. Ripeto, occorre un cambio di paradigma anche nell'approccio fra le ICOMOS Italia è presente ICOMOS internazionale è presente in moltissime di queste attività istituzionali a livello mondiale. ICOMOS Italia è impegnata in progetti per il Mediterraneo operativi che riguardano il patrimonio culturale come elemento di incontro e di economia territoriale. Di questo avremo modo di parlare in un'altra sezione. Il mio auspicio, l'auspicio di ICOMOS Italia, è che il nostro incontro possa portare un documento finale che guardi ai temi di urgenza che le realtà internazionali ci impongono nei rapporti soprattutto dei paesi terzi e dell'Africa in particolare. Grazie e auguro a tutti buon lavoro.
Grazie. Next to the floor, we'd like to call on Dr. Vittorio Calabris from the European Commission.
Okay, good morning. Good morning to everybody. I'm very glad to be here and of course to share with you some ideas on this relevant topic on behalf of the European Commission. And to this goal, I would like just to share with you some words, some excerpts from the speech held by the Commissioner Urpilainen. She is in charge of the international partnership at the European Commission, of course, and in particular on the African in the European Union partnership. A speech held at Transforming Education Summit, titled The Global Challenge of Addressing the Learning Crisis. In the international and in particular in cooperation with universities, we need, of course, more investments, but also better investments. Together, the member states, the European Union, as you know, is the top donor at worldwide, and in particular, also in the education field. We are facing a learning crisis today. So to tackle this learning crisis, the European Commission has decided to increase the investment on education. And at least 30% of the EU international partnership budget should be on education, according to the last words of the Commissioner Urpilainen. So to end the learning crisis, we must focus to increase this investment in 3 areas. The first one is to improving education quality, so better quality. The second area is empowering teachers. And third, cultivating relevant skills. Just a few words. First, quality. Quality, why? Because before pandemic, 65% of primary school children worldwide lacked basic reading skills. Now that figure is around 70% in low and middle also income countries. So turning around this trend must be our #1 priority. Second point, empowering teachers. We need a good environment also for the teachers. So being a successful teacher requires vocation, requires quality training and continuous professional development. We must support the professional environment to attract and retain teachers who can provide students with the quality education. Third and last point, we must cultivate relevant skills. New discoveries, trends, and geopolitical developments continue to emerge every day. Education must change along with them. So there is a clear mismatch today between existing education system and the job market. We need to focus skill development in areas such as science, technology, engineering, and math. And so we have to invest in higher education and vocational institutions to prepare the youth for the green and digital transition. And this is why the President Ursula von der Leyen decided also to launch next year, 2023, the European Skills for the European Year for Skills. So I hope and I wish that you have a good and fruitful debate today, and I thank for your attention. Have a good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much on those insights about better investments and better quality of education. Next to the stage to share her welcoming remarks, we have Ms. Jennifer Copithon from ICROM.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Excellencies, Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of addressing you on behalf of my Director General, Weber Ndoro, who was unfortunately unable to make it today, but sends his heartfelt greetings. I'm Jennifer Coppathorne, Acting Manager of Partnership and Communication at ICROM. On behalf of Dr. Ndoro and ICROM, I would like to express my gratitude to our hosts and the organizers of this important forum. It's now an annual tradition that we look forward to each year. Professor Dino Mastracola and Dr. Paola Pittia, who represented him today, Monsignor Lorenzo Leuzzi, the Bishop of Teramo Atri. A special greeting to Professor Maria Chiara Malaguti of UNIDROIT, of architect Maurizio Di Stefano of ICOMOS Italia, Dr. Nicola Dalterio, Dr. Maurizio Tira, and many of the partners and participants here today. A warm greeting and thanks to Dr. Roberto Colamine, Vice Director General of the Development Cooperation of the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, for his support of this endeavor and the ministry's partnership for our program for youth in Africa. A special welcome to Ambassador Nosipo Jazile, Ambassador of South Africa in Italy. South Africa joined ICROM as a member state in 2004, and since then has been a steadfast partner in many of our activities on the continent, including now with the establishment of a heritage hub at the University of Cape Town. We are particularly appreciative of the presence of the European Commission, represented today by Dr. Kalapishe, as it demonstrates the greater international interest in building bridges between cultures and continents. And of course, in light of the European Year of Youth, the upcoming European Year of Skills, we share in our determination to build and develop capacities in a changing world. Allow me to tell you a little bit about ICROM, for those of you who might not know us. Established in 1956, we are an organization that works in service for our 137 member states, 40 of which are in Africa. We believe that by protecting and promoting our cultural heritage, we can contribute to making a better world. Our programs and activities are designed to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals, namely those pertaining to people, the planet, and prosperity. We fulfill our mandate by providing training and research tools to strengthen the professional community, by mobilizing and coordinating expertise to address critical issues of heritage conservation, by collecting and disseminating information across a worldwide network, and by promoting awareness of the value of preserving our heritage. At the heart of this work is a special consideration for the next generation, who will be both the recipients of what is passed down and the custodians of this precious resource until it is their turn to give it over to their children and grandchildren. Our belief in the potential of heritage to be a source of social and economic opportunity for young people is what led to the creation of our program, Youth Heritage in Africa. It's a simple name that encompasses everything and everyone we want to reach. In a very short time, this program has brought together hundreds of young professionals from across the African continent for training for best practice in heritage management and conservation, and we seek to inspire youth to harness their creativity and entrepreneurial spirit. We match people to tools and know-how with the aim of cultivating better professional skills and competencies, together with the sustainable protection of heritage and in turn, greater economic prosperity. To meet these aspirations, we bring over 60 years of experience to the table, with 30 years specifically geared towards the African continent alone. Obviously, this important work is not carried out alone. So we have strong and committed partners, many of which are here today, AWHF, EPA, and many more. Every step of the way, and going back to ICROM's core mandate, cooperation is at the core of what we do. ICROM places special importance on collaboration with higher education institutions in creating bridges between countries across professions and generations, and connecting ideas to needs. That is why we're so honored to be surrounded by such centers of excellence today. We hope that the outcome of this conference and these new bridges under construction will take the discussions further, and so that we can turn them into a concrete project for the benefit of Africa, strengthening the bonds between our two continents. Investing in research and training is at the core of what we do. So is cultivating dialogue and bringing people together. As a former course participant once said, we learned not only to preserve objects, but also to build bridges between countries, cultures, and people. This is exactly what we hope to continue with today, with your partnership, your friendship, and your support. So with this, I renew our heartfelt appreciation to the organizers, to the Italian government, and all of you participating today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. May those bridges you speak of stand long. Next, we'd like to call on Mr. Roberto Colamine from the MAECI.
Good morning, Professor Dino Mastrocolla, represented by Professor Palapitti, Dean of the University, Your Excellency, Monsignor Lorenzo Leuzzi, and Director General of ICROM, Web Andoro, represented by Jennifer Capiton, President of ONI Droit, Chiara Malagutti, and ICOMOS, Maurizio Di Stefano, Director General of IZS, Nicola D'Alterio, Representative of the European Commission, Vittorio Calaprice, and the Ambassador of South Africa, Nosifo Nausuka Jean Gesile. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, okay, maybe this once for all. It's a pleasure for me to be representing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the 4th Conference of Euro-African Academic Partnership in investing in research and training bridges between Africa and Europe for a new renaissance. Despite the difficult time we're living, our presence here altogether shows that the power of ideas and the need to share them are stronger than ever, and may I add, stronger than everything else, considering the current circumstances worldwide. I would like to thank the partner of this initiative for their tireless commitment and work, the University of Teramo and Diocese, ICROM, the ICOMOS, Droit, and l'Istituto Zooprofilattico Sperimentale dell'Abruzzo e del Molise. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been mentioned many times, and we are happy to be here, but I must say that we are here as those who have been facilitating, supporting this initiative, but that the right to claim for the success of this initiative is entirely yours. And our role as a public institution, as part of the Italian government, has been to support your effort, as all governments should do when the society, the community is able to produce results. If we look back at the contents of the previous conferences, we cannot avoid to stress that this initiative, in which all partners involved have strongly believed since the beginning, has really been a work in progress. And then again brings to the concept of your tireless effort to bring this work forward and to transform the ideas that inspired it into a concrete roadmap. The first step of this initiative being the awareness and the realization that this forum could be an opportunity for leaders of African higher education institutions to exchange experience at the regional and international level, and specifically experiences related to the role of prevention in protecting culture and natural heritage. The Teramo Declaration gave a more structured body to the deliverable issued from the first conference, and it was the call of action that many people were looking for, with a special focus on the investment in youth empowerment. empowerment to achieve the goals of the Agenda 2030. Investing in youth has become the pivotal issue of the initiative, and we have to consider when we talk about youth, we cannot discuss anymore about the youth, but we should discuss with young people, having clear in mind that what is important, what they expect to be done. They want to have their voice heard, and they are right in this, and we can help them giving suggestions based on the experience, but it's up to them to shape their path and their and our common future. We have to bear in mind that youth has also been the category of humanity most penalized by the pandemic for the reasons that have been mentioned. There's been a reduction even in the level of knowledge they had and the possibility to study during these years. So investing in people is certainly the most important issue we have today, when we consider we have to overcome the temptation to look only at emergency response and go back to the long-term action that we have to conduct. And therefore, technology, research, digitalization, professional training, mobility have to be considered and studied further, as it is being done in this forum, in this initiative, in view of creating employment opportunity, and most importantly, giving young people the possibility to contribute to the building of their future. With regard to Italian cooperation, most of you know that almost half of our geographical, not more than half of our geographical priorities are in African countries, and we are very much committed to consolidate and strengthen an equal partnership with African partners based on trust and respect. To this aim, the academia may play a role of paramount importance, both in the scientific and cultural dimension. Development cooperation is, according to our legislation, essential and integral part of the foreign policy, which means that it's not a tool of the foreign policy. It's a part that should inspire and conduct the foreign policy itself. And from this point of view, cultural diplomacy and the soft power of culture can help building bridges and face all the factors that are inducing destabilization around the world, and help shaping a peaceful path. In this fourth conference, all these issues are mentioned and are considered in the wide-ranging workshops that are envisaged within the conference, and the concept of Renaissance education and training are certainly at the heart of this. But may I call again, as I briefly did at the end of my address yesterday, the idea of building bridges. Probably one of the most ancient title and revered title we have in the world today is the title of bridge builder, which actually translates in Latin as a pontifex, title we certainly know. And building bridges, being pontifex or pontifices in plural, is certainly the most important thing that anybody can do, and all of us can do or help to do within the limits of our knowledges and our competencies. So I wish you successful conduction of this course, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Minister Colamine, and the support from the ministry, ongoing support is much appreciated. We'll now have an online address from Mr. Maurizio Tira from CRUI.
Grazie, buongiorno, grazie alla traduzione, parlo in italiano. Innanzitutto sono molto dispiaciuto di non essere con voi in questi giorni molto importanti che avevo pianificato nella mia agenda, ma un problema di salute mi impedisce di affrontare ancora il viaggio. Un carissimo saluto al collega amico rettore Dino Mastrocola, a Monsignor Leuzzi e Paola Pittia, che sono cari amici ormai da quando anch'io ho avuto il piacere e l'onore di partecipare all'incontro a Lampedusa l'anno scorso. e grazie per aver organizzato ancora questo forum. Vi porto anche i saluti del presidente della conferenza dei rettori, il professor Ferruccio Resta, che condivide, come tutte le università italiane, questa spinta verso la cooperazione internazionale e in particolare con il continente africano, anche in attuazione della strategia dell'Unione Europea di questi anni e anche della strategia dell'internazionalizzazione delle università italiane che stiamo sempre più cercando di sviluppare. Mi consentirete di sottolineare 2 o 3 aspetti che io ritengo fondamentali nella cooperazione internazionale e che ritengo debbano presto superare anche qualche approccio sbagliato che nel passato ha caratterizzato la cooperazione, soprattutto tra i paesi, l'Italia, i paesi europei e il continente africano. Innanzitutto credo che dobbiamo riconoscere le responsabilità storiche che il nostro paese e l'Europa hanno nei confronti del continente africano. E riconoscere le responsabilità vuol dire agire perché i rapporti oggi e nel futuro siano completamente, radicalmente diversi e superare anche qualche stereotipo alimentato a volte un po' capziosamente anche da qualche propaganda politica nel nostro paese e non solo nell'Unione Europea. Il secondo punto è che credo che perché si possa instaurare una vera cooperazione a tutti i livelli, dai giovani, gli studenti e le studentesse, ai professori, ai ricercatori, ci deve essere il riconoscimento reciproco delle peculiarità culturali, ma il riconoscimento reciproco, non la convinzione che l'avanzamento della cultura e anche l'innovazione tecnologica debba stare prevalentemente solo da una parte. Noi dobbiamo, per fare questo concretamente vuol dire aumentare le cooperazioni scientifiche tra i 2 continenti, in particolare tra l'Italia e il continente africano, vuol dire aumentare le pubblicazioni che facciamo insieme, riconoscere il valore delle università di quel continente, riconoscere vuol dire conoscere prima, riconoscere anche il fatto che la mobilità degli studenti deve essere nei 2 sensi, non semplicemente con un intento, diciamo, di attrattività dall'Africa verso l'Europa, parlo in generale dell'Africa, ma insomma soprattutto da alcuni paesi verso l'Europa e l'Italia, ma anche viceversa, attivare delle cooperazioni anche dal punto di vista quindi della mobilità studentesca. Nel PNRR abbiamo ancora una misura da spendere che è le Transnational Education Initiatives che stiamo mettendo a punto e che potrà dare l'opportunità di creare una decina di partnership tra università italiane e università nel mondo e io sono sicuro che alcune iniziative riguarderanno il continente africano. Mi scuso per parlare del continente africano nella sua complessità, è già un errore in sé, nel senso che bisogna riconoscere le grandi diversità, così come grandi diversità ci sono anche nell'Europa, per cui le cooperazioni so che sono e devono essere su linee diverse, però in generale io credo che dobbiamo fare un'attività particolare di rifondazione delle modalità con cui collaboriamo tra i nostri sistemi universitari. Noi abbiamo recentemente anche iniziato il lavoro di strategia di internazionalizzazione 22-27 in cui metteremo alcuni paesi prioritari di cooperazione, alcuni paesi ovviamente sono nel continente africano e credo che quindi ci saranno anche delle risorse per poter investire. Però prima di tutto io credo che serva un cambio di mentalità. Le vostre iniziative, questo 4º forum del Gran Sasso e la Carta di Teramo sono un'occasione importantissima in questo cammino di reciproca conoscenza e di cooperazione e io fin d'ora mi riprometto e spero proprio di poter essere presente il prossimo anno perché sono sicuro che questa iniziativa continuerà e continuerà a crescere. Abbiamo fatto recentemente anche una consultazione online, abbiamo promosso una consultazione online sull'interesse nella cooperazione tra l'Unione Europea e la strategia anche di sviluppo dei paesi africani e il nostro paese, l'Italia, ha risposto a questa consultazione tra i paesi che hanno avuto una maggiore percentuale appunto di risposte a questa segnalazione di interesse. Quindi io sono fiducioso che nel futuro ci possa essere anche la capacità di trasferire questo sì, a volte può essere necessario trasferire un know-how tecnologico ad alcune realtà nel continente africano che magari ne hanno particolarmente bisogno, perché la sostenibilità dello sviluppo che c'è stata evocata e i 17 obiettivi di sviluppo sostenibile si raggiungono solo se si raggiungono a livello planetario. Noi sappiamo benissimo che uno dei fallimenti parziali della conferenza sul clima di Glasgow è stato il fatto che il trasferimento di know-how per avere tecnologie appropriate, tecnologie pulite, tecnologie che consentano alle parti del mondo che ancora non hanno commesso gli errori che l'Europa ha commesso in maniera copiosa negli ultimi decenni, è una chiave fondamentale per poter rispettare gli accordi di Parigi. Se non ci sarà questa volontà di cooperazione, che significa anche restituzione di risorse economiche ai paesi che hanno sofferto del degrado ambientale causato soprattutto dai paesi ricchi e adesso non vogliono ripetere questi errori, se non ci sarà questo trasferimento di conoscenze, di know-how e di risorse, non riusciremo a livello planetario a raggiungere gli obiettivi di sviluppo sostenibile. Grazie, buon lavoro e un abbraccio carissimo al mio collega Dino e a Monsignor Leuzzi e a tutti voi. Buona giornata.
Grazie, Mr. Tera. And then last but not least, we'd like to welcome Ambassador Nosipo Jazile, the South African ambassador in Italy. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Good morning, buongiorno. Thank you, Chairperson Veronica, and my sister from South Africa. At the outset, I wish to thank the University of Teramo, located in this beautiful landscape and seascape in the region of Abruzzo, for hosting this important fourth Euro-African Academic Partnership as a conference that is being held annually. And I also appreciate the gracious invitation to make some opening remarks. I do also wish to appreciate the warm hospitality that's been extended to us by ICROM. This conference takes place following the successful conclusion of the 6th European Union, African Union Summit, where Africa and the European Union consolidated and renewed a partnership, especially on sustainable and sustained economic growth. I also wish to recognize with appreciation the commitment to advance cooperation with Africa by the government of Italy, represented here by Roberto Calamine of Maeci, or the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. I further wish to acknowledge the significant collaboration between the International Center for the Study of Conservation and Restoration of Cultural Property, ICROM, the University of Teramo, and the Diocese of Teramo-Atri, which continues on the foundations of the Roundtable on Partnerships in Universities, Science and Technology that was held in 2019, in which Monsignor Leuzzi spoke about the importance of university cooperation and objectives of internationalization. On that occasion, Monsignor made reference, I quote, globalization that deroots is not positive, I close quote, which meant that cooperation must have development as its core goal. Therefore, ethical globalization must promote education of young people and contribute positively to developing countries in Africa. Universities as institutions of education and learning to advance knowledge through research and dialogue about the emerging topics of the day. Universities, amongst others, therefore serve to harness capabilities of reading the present and cultivating awareness about humanism and is significant in promoting ideas that encompass heritage, nature, and technological innovation. Some of these concepts were already expanded on yesterday during the inaugural session. And those concepts are being pursued in the academic arena, particularly in order to establish new values of coexistence, unity between generations for the purpose of people, planet, and for prosperity. This was the theme of the G20 summit that was held in Italy last year. The long-term future depends on how best we cultivate the balance in all dimensions of sustainable development, people being one dimension. Chairperson, the world is faced with unprecedented challenges of war, conflict, injustices, hunger, exceeding the planetary thresholds, climate change, spread of diseases, and a lingering COVID pandemic that negatively impacted on sustainable growth, food security, and peaceful coexistence. In dealing with these challenges, investing in research and training, and using existing and forging new partnerships, especially between Africa and Europe, is of crucial importance. Advancing gender equality and providing access to women, girls, and youth in general to education and training is a requirement to implement sustainable development goals. The African continent is blessed not just by its beauty, but with a significant number of young people, which are estimated at around 400 million at this stage. And this is a positive demographic dividend, which should be key for Africa's lasting development. At the African Union, this has been recognized through, amongst others, the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the rights of women in Africa, the African Youth Charter, Youth Decade Plan of Action, and the Malabo Decision on Youth Empowerment. On a national basis, South Africa has, for example, adopted the National Youth Policy for the period between 2020 to 2030 that outlines policy priorities to accelerate youth development. Important priority areas include quality education, as well as aspects of social cohesion and nation building. At the African Union Summit, jointly with European Union, those aspects of research and training were reinforced through a commitment to support scientific cooperation between researchers, sharing technology and expertise, including through a joint AU-EU innovation agenda. Indeed, building bridges between Africa and Europe. The Teramo Charter that was signed 22 June 2021 is considered an important instrument to implement the global 2030 agenda for sustainable development, thus advancing youth and exchange programs for European and African students. It is encouraging that a commitment was also made to encourage exchanges of youth citizens and students, including through the expanded Erasmus Plus program, and to further develop partnerships between universities. This fourth conference for a Euro-African academic partnership, therefore, is a practical step to operationalize this joint commitment, and the partnership between Africa and the European Union is therefore on course. Chairperson, in this context, I also wish to recognize with much appreciation those activities that are practical examples of fostering African capacity building and training, such as the UNIDROIT International Summer School that focused on Africa in 2022, and the ICROM's Youth Heritage Africa program. already referred to by Jennifer on behalf of the Director General. ICCROM's innovative initiative on building hubs across Africa to contribute to capacity building, research and innovation is currently underway in a number of countries, including Senegal, Rwanda, Kenya, Egypt, Benin, Mali, and Zimbabwe. South Africa is also proud to have been selected to host a heritage hub at the University of Cape Town in the context of this ICCROM program initiative. South Africa and Italian universities have entered into a number of agreements, and when I checked at the embassy, we have about 57 cooperation agreements between South African universities or academic institutions with Italian institutions. These agreements are to enable mutual partnerships and advance exchanges in various knowledge and research fields, creating concrete opportunities for synergies in human capital development. One of the existing successful cooperation agreements is with the Zooprophyletic Institute, ISZAM, and South African universities or institutes, which include the University of Pretoria, Agricultural Research Council, and others, on detection of exotic animal diseases and a postgraduate exchange program, including the labs that are being established to establish standardization in terms of scientific advancement. In conclusion, Chairperson, after all, before trade and investment, education is the foundation for the future. I wish you all as friends and partners a successful conference and extend a challenge to not only identify those challenges, but also implement concrete actions to further enhance the African academic partnership with Europe. You have the full support of South Africa, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for that insightful address. These partnerships between Africa and Europe are indeed crucial. I'm told we have the Embassy of Libya online, the representative. We just want to thank you for the ongoing support, and I'm indeed looking forward for more fruitful engagement.
We can start with the next session, please. Okay. I'm here to share the three contributions from Italy and Africa to today's discussion. Three are the key issues to be discussed, means transnational education as a bridge between Africa and Italy. Then we have local-led development. That means adopting a bottom-up approach with the African colleagues' contributions. Then we have the keynote speech about the key role of youth, but not only. All of us are responsible for a sustainable future. So we can start. I'm glad to invite Professor Bettini. Please, Professor, to present the keynote speech, Inside Renaissance being a protagonist of change.
Good morning to everybody. The topic of my speech, I have been requested to develop, is Inside the Africa and Europe Renaissance being protagonists of the change. Valuing the history of the 5th and 6th centuries, Jean-Jacques Voltaire observed that the Renaissance was a key factor in establishing a system in which all parts are related by continuous correspondence. Particularly, it was followed by an historical phase which led to an age of transition that was equally important for our 3rd century, which Francis defined as a change of era. In this discourse discours préliminaire à l'encyclopédie of 1751, D'Alembert possessed a precise picture of the revolutionary moment in Renaissance, the Renaissance represented. I'm quoting D'Alembert. In order to get out of barbarism, human begins needs one of those revolutions that completely renew the face of the earth. There was no longer a copy of or imitation of the Greeks and Romans. Efforts were made to overcome them, if possible, and to think for themselves. Thus, the imagination of the moderns was gradually reborn from that of the ancients, and almost simultaneously all the masterpieces of the last century were still flourishing. Quotation ended. The general elements of Renaissance are emerging again, although in different ways, and are welcomed and revised in order to promote a real and deep cooperation between Africa and Europe. The positive aspects of Renaissance, their name, their characteristic aspects, their value, their meaning in modern civilization have always been displayed in the field of art and literature and in the field of thought and education. The reference to a possible new Renaissance leads to the consideration of some factors of cooperation determining the quality of relationship between Europe and Africa on a cultural level, which had their roots precisely in the Italian and European Renaissance. The humanistic and revolutionary value of scientific discoveries. Second one, a revolutionary expectation arising from the unstoppable nature of the human beings as explorers, which means a broadening of horizons. And third one, the care of synergy of the past and world, where individual and common destinies met more and more on a planetary level. The 21st century is in a transition period in which the vicious cycle of epidemiology, war, and the negative effects of the economic crisis are still proving the truth of Bartholomew de las Casas' words, which judged Renaissance a period so new and so different. This is why it's important today to discuss the new Renaissance. This new century, unlike the rest, is so different. It can be explained. It can be lived with cliché coming from the past and needs a different interpretation and governance of the history. The typical aspects of Renaissance are reappearing in new historic forms today, but they continue to push forward, positive as well as negative, toward an horizon whose impact is not fully understood. In 1517, marked the beginning of a process of breakdown of spiritual and political unity of Europe and the New World. Today, this world of ours, after the attacks of the 11th September and the fall of Berlin's Wall, the crisis in the economy, and the ongoing war with devastating consequences, but with a renewed sense of nostalgia for the lost unity. It almost sense, listening to the news, that in the history of this area of change, the walls of Christ are still standing. From now on, a household of 5 will be divided 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. And this, as already said, not an individual level, but at the planetary level. But we should be aware, humanity is not looking for a lost unity, but is thirsting for a new kind of unity to be built. When we compare to tradition that will be walking today together, African and European traditions, in the light of the notion of Renaissance, there are some basic points to be focused on. The term African Renaissance is referring to the culture and political movements that have been taking place since the start of the 20th century in Africa. This movement was spearheaded by a number of influential people who wanted to end European colonialism. The term African Renaissance is often applied to the general progress in politics, culture, and historical and social history of Africa, as well as to the specific period beginning in the first half of the 20th century, in which such progress took place. The African Renaissance was a positive change in the African culture and led to several positive changes, including democratic freedom, free expression, and rights, but due to its multiple aspects, the consequences of this Renaissance aren't always clear. The influential figures of Africa's Renaissance, which should be considered in the context of cooperation between Europe and Africa, were Dr. Martin Luther, the Baptist minister who put civil rights at the table, and Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana, who was a champion of the Pan-African movement and who was also a founding member of the Organization for African Unity, now called Africa Union, and who was also in charge of series of social initiatives. And there are also other heroes coming from Africa, for example, Nelson Mandela, and so on. Restricting our reflection now to Europe, we know that during the Renaissance, the system of European states had an interesting analogy in terms of so-called unity to the Republica Literaria, a space for intellectual confrontation in Europe, especially where there are differences between purpose and nations. This explains why today we celebrate the scientific and cultural cooperation between 2 continents facing each other geographically, but now is the time for them to look at each other from a human, spiritual, and scientific perspective. We can say that the values that arise today from the European past and which can be the object of reflection are mainly 3. The first one is being a protagonist in a time of change, of great changes. Second one, being a pioneer by having a new vision of the world. And third one, being a builder of history and a master by a new identity of oneself. But in the light of this 5th edition of the International Forum, the 4th of the European Partnership with the African rectors, a new renaissance for Europe-Africa cooperation, one last question remains to be explored, namely the dialectic of an African Renaissance. The African Renaissance is based on a worldwide cultural, social, and political movement which promotes collective well-being and prosperity for Africans. The concept behind the African Renaissance is a revival and restoration of African culture, traditions, and values. Many see the current conditions in Africa as the result of the effects of colonizer undermining traditional cultures. Some believe that the African Renaissance is a social movement which inspires Africa to pursue its collective dreams. However, there is a debate as to what exactly it encompasses. Renaissance is an important global initiative in Africa, which promotes the unity, the prosperity, and the progress of the continent. The African Renaissance is a dialectical one with the Africa of the diaspora. There are around 50 million Africans living abroad due to the poor conditions of living in their own countries. This exodus of skilled professionals has caused economic stagnation in many African countries, leading to poverty and conflicts. On the other hand, we must consider that the diaspora plays an important role in promoting an African Renaissance by bringing the global perspective back to their countries of origin. For example, there are many Saxo Nigerians who have returned home to create educational opportunities for other Nigerians. By increasing connectivity, and also cooperation, the diaspora plays a fundamental role in the global promotion of the African Renaissance. The African Renaissance is aimed at creating dialogue between Africa and the rest of the world. Many Africans see colonialism as an important historical event that has weakened their culture and traditions. As such, they view current condition in Africa as a result of the effects of colonizers undermining traditional culture. Improved education and available information are also milestones of the African Renaissance. According to education expert David Coleman, I'm quoting, "Education is not just about literacy, but also about understanding how society works." Quotation ended. Furthermore, information is essential for learning about social issues and finding ways to address them. Therefore, greater education coupled with better access to information could produce innovative solutions to long-standing problems of the most deprived areas of Africa. This would allow Africans to create technology that bypasses underperforming institutions and to connect directly with institutions seeking partnerships or resources in those areas. I conclude. While there are divergent views as to what exactly an African Renaissance encompasses, there is agreement that it should promote only by a real cooperation, above all at the culture and research at scientific research level, a real unity between two continents that should not stop to face themselves, but only by geographic way, but only by cultural way. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bettini, for a very interesting presentation, keynote speech, including relevant input to be captured. Okay, we move on. The next second keynote speech means tackling global challenges, building a common response through academic networking. Means I like to hear from the African partners some comments, some suggestions, some I don't know, their opinion on their needs or in terms of training and education. I think the crucial, the main goal of this conference is to identify or define a common program in terms of training and education between Europe and Africa, and also to identify funds for implementing exchange expert programs or scholarships, for example. So I like to invite my colleagues, for example, I don't know, from Sudan or Egypt, I don't know, just to give your opinion in terms of needs or training. In the afternoon, we will have the roundtable discussion titled Capacity Building Towards Agriculture Sustainability. But now just 5 minutes. I don't know, Espera. Yes. We are late.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think what we can do at this point, we can ask our colleagues from business partners.
Okay.
So when we meet in the afternoon, we have a deep discussions around those opportunities for learning training. So then we move to Prof. Gaudio.
Yes. Yes, keynote speech 3. I'm glad to invite the Professor Gaudio with Bridge Between Africa and Europe, Transnational Education with Africa.
Good morning, colleagues and friends. First of all, I wish to thank His Excellency Enzo Leuzzi for inviting me to this very interesting and important meeting. As you know, Africa has long been the center of the European world debates, and the continent's role in global policies will become increasingly strategic in the upcoming years. The challenges that lie ahead, complex, multidisciplinary, and unpredictable, call for the role and responsibility of academic training and scientific research, not least in strengthening the network of relations between Africa, Italy, and Europe under the common goal of sustainable and equitable development. In this context, the role of what the European Commission today calls science diplomacy is crucial, and more generally is imperative to aim for a peer-to-peer collaboration between the university systems of African and European countries. Many Italian universities have contributed and continue to contribute actively to training generations and professionals and managers in many partner countries. Such initiatives become a driving force in developing further future relation of our country in the private or public sphere, in a spirit of peer partnership. Sapienza University's scientific and didactic activities have long been driven by the strive to ensure quality education for all, to foster technology transfer, to protect our cultural heritage and promote relation with the territory, international networks, and sustainable mobility. During my years as rector of Sapienza University, it's the largest in Europe, Funding for international cooperation projects taken from Sapienza on budget has grown and doubled. And notwithstanding the COVID-19 crisis, confirming our commitment to promoting the specific sector in the broader framework of our university's international strategy. And today, the university's cooperation projects in Africa include intervention to promote cultural specificities, the preservation of artistic heritage, such as support for the Fort Apollonia Museum in Ghana, but also urban development projects, program addressing climate change, for example, in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, and studies on the conservation of biodiversity in Mozambique. Our projects in the medical field are important and innovative, ranging from the training of paramedical personnel in Benin to the surgical support offered in Burkina Faso, and again, the cooperation with hospitals in Chad, all in highly critical context. Continuing along the traced path, Sapienza became an active member of a European largest university consortium, the CIVIS, European Civic University Alliance, that is an important instrument to build our international dimension today and the coming years, and to have a very important relationship with African networks and universities. It will also be an important instrument of our policies toward countries outside of Europe. First of all, towards Africa and the wider Mediterranean, and since these are the regions CIVIS has chosen to focus on. Lastly, in 2019, Sapienza joined together with other 5 large and renowned Italian universities. University of Bologna, that is the oldest university in Europe, University of Florence, the Polytechnic University of Milan, University of Naples, Federico II, and the University of Padua, with the crucial support of the Ministry of University and Research, aiming at contributing to facilitate and strengthen the collaboration, the integration between Italian and African higher education institutions, with a special attention to the transnational education approaches. The effort culminated in the establishment of the IHEA Foundation, the Italian Higher Education Foundation with Africa. IHEA Foundation calls for a reassessment of internationalization as an asset of science diplomacy by fostering the collaboration between Italian and African universities. Also by means of strengthening the presence of Italian universities abroad, with the ultimate aim of contributing in line with the essence of academic cooperation to local and autonomous development, contributing to mitigate brain drain dynamics. Our aim is twofold. On one end, to offer high quality education to students who seek to pursue a university education of a high technical and scientific level by acquiring an academic title recognized not only in Africa, but also in Italy and then in Europe. On the other hand, to support long-term partnership across the educational systems across Italy and Africa by improving the expertise of the local academic scholars and staff, creating opportunities for local careers. The IHEA Foundation was formally launched in October 2020 during the COVID-19 crisis, activating a multi-level virtual training mobility program to support African universities in ensuring students' careers during the lockdown. The IHEA Foundation pilot project was conceived jointly with African universities that were already partners of the University of the Foundation, and was designed for students enrolled in 30 universities in 11 countries: Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, Cameroon, Botswana, Ghana, South Africa, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, and Uganda. The students selected in collaboration with local universities were able to participate in a number of courses delivered online by Italian universities and thus participate in the innovative teaching methods developed and fine-tuned during the last semester. The university master degrees sustainable management of resources for local development, empowering higher education in Africa that is taking place in the current academic year represent our next phase. The specializing master program, entirely taught in English, is markedly multidisciplinary and it is specifically designed to strengthen the transversal knowledge needed for teaching and research on strategic themes for the African continent, such as resource management and local development. Teaching modules therefore range from project research management, innovative teaching and learning methods, to sustainable food and sustainable development and on the Africa Challenge, from sustainable energy and cultural heritage, and One Health. This specializing master is targeted and qualified generation of skilled young researchers and teaching staff or higher education institutions in Africa. It stands as an essential means for their professional development. The specializing master has a threefold objective. One, to increase participant skill and knowledge on the multifaceted issue of the global challenge for sustainable development, with particular attention to local implications in the African continent. Second, to provide the participants with the necessary tools to pursue research on the topic and transfer knowledge and skills acquired in their home universities. The third, to enforce the partnership between their home universities and our Italian universities. In the first edition of the specializing master, 35 researchers from Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Uganda have been selected among 149 applications. Ihea Foundation, thanks to the financial support of the Italian Ministry of University and Research, has covered all the students' fees and has provided some facilities in order to enable them to attend the course. In the short-term future, the Foundation's transnational education strategy foresees the launch of 2 Italian transnational campuses in Ethiopia and in Tunisia, the first 2, awarding first, second, and third level degrees and other advantage training courses to deliver jointly with local university and their staff members. To this end, the Ihea Foundation aims to establishing, together with the local African institutions, curricular programs at different levels to provide a solid academic education for future professionals and experts who will face the societal and global challenges, thus requiring multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary methodologies. In designing such programs, particular attention will be given to intersectionality, ensuring equitable access to the academic initiatives to female scholars and students, those living in rural areas, and people on lower incomes. All degree programs shall be run locally and include mobility for staff and students to further support their skills and employability, enhancing the capacities, quality, and international dimension of local higher education institutions. In conclusion, we firmly believe that supporting the African education system must be at the heart of any action aimed at the actual development of the region, since this can only be achieved through its cultural, scientific, and educational growth. IHEA stems from the idea that Italy could, or better must, play a leading role in Africa, and that the country's major university cannot neglect this ethical imperative to cooperate in a peer-to-peer position with African universities. So this is our aim, and I'm sure that in the next few years we will have a successful project that we can also discuss in the further occasion and also in this forum. Thank you so much for your so kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gaudio, for very interesting presentation. And I think it's better to move on the next session, means thematic session 1. I invite the Mrs. Jennifer to chair this thematic session, please.
Thank you, and hello again. First of all, I'd like to thank the previous chair, and with this occasion, I would also like to thank the rapporteur, Giada Borsesi of Italy, and a colleague from ICROM. And I would also like to welcome the next rapporteur, Ms. Afo Guiniguez, a young professional from Côte d'Ivoire, who will be the rapporteur for this session. I will ask the speakers to forgive me in advance for asking them to keep to time, as we're a little bit behind schedule. So welcome to Thematic Session 1, Lessons from Euro-African Conferences, New Concerns and Perspectives through the Discussions 2019 to 2021. The first speaker will be Professor Paola Pitia from the University of Teramo, talking about critical needs. So without further ado, I'll let her speak.
First of all, briefly, I thank all the co-organizers of this important event, and one in particular, ICROM, that with whom we shared and also we organized all the previous conferences for the Euro-Africa Academic Partnership. I have a hard task this morning to introduce the critical needs for an effective academic partnership, taking into account all the past experiences, which brings us to now to take into account 3 editions plus this one. This is the Teramo Charter. Teramo's Charter is a document that has been signed in 2019 by 25 colleagues, rectors, delegates from African countries, along with the University of Teramo, ICROM, Dioceses of Atri, Teramo, CRUI, which is the Conference of Directors of the Universities, the Italian universities, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Actually, this document contains a lot of, I mean, even if it's a brief document, it has a very strong aim, which is ensure preservation and permanence of world cultural and natural heritage. And the main target is the youth population. This brings us to consider important aspects, because the youth population of today will be the leadership, will be the leaders of tomorrow, the managers of tomorrow. And they will have the responsibility, and we have the responsibility to guide them, to teach and train them to the future. And this Teramo's Charter has been always considered as a tool or a framework, depending on the perspectives, for collaboration in the review of Africa's shortcomings and the development of actions for promotion of a sustainable, fair, social and economic growth. And there is a main focus, obviously, in this charter Teramo that is related to education, youth population. We need to educate them by taking into account, and from this point of view, the main institutions which are here involved are obviously the academia's ones. And we have to manage, safeguard, and ensure the respect of the cultural and natural heritage and resources in all of our actions, and be effective in an essential for the sustainable development. So we have the responsibility as academia, as a part also of our missions, to be able to be effective from this point of view. Academia is an important, we know, also taking into account other innovation models that academia plays a main role in our society. Taking into account the different missions. The first is education, the second is research, the third is the engagement of with the societal actors, and in order to be able to promote the economic and social growth of our society. Academia is a main place, or represents also a community for exchange of experience, best practices, allow joint forces, design, develop, and we have seen the previous presentation of Professor Gaudio, really a very excellent work in this respect, in the development of higher education initiatives, the co-creation of initiatives with other actors of our society, and the generation of knowledge and culture for the future. We have also involved in the Teramo Declaration multilateral organizations, which are the other non-academic organizations, which are not of minor importance, because of we are all part of the same society. And with them, we have to strengthen the sustainable development activities and actions we would like to promote in this Euro-Africa partnership. Until now, just a brief overview of what we have been doing until now, up to today. Actually, we organized 3 main events, starting from 2019, and you can see here the titles that each of these conferences had, trying to touch and discuss and favor the discussion among the participants on different aspects. Starting from the first, and that was really an opportunity to start discussing about cultural and natural heritage, taking into account the role, positions, professions. This means also the background, the scientific, cultural background that we have to bring in terms of knowledge to favor the sustainable development goals. The second was online. Unfortunately, we faced COVID-19, but it was a very nice experience in discussing tools and opportunities offered also by Europe to enhance the collaboration and the partnership. The third one last year was blended, and was also another interesting opportunity and event where actually we discussed of the main, the key aspects that nowadays all over the world we are called to sort out. This means digitalization, sustainability, employability, and in order to promote, to shape this new economic integration for youth. And we are here today in the fourth one, actually trying to see how we can further develop and invest in education and training to promote actually the new renaissance and the new bridges or strengthen the bridges between Africa and Europe. In between, we had also another event that was, let's say, co-sponsored or anyway promoted by the Teremos Charter in Lampedusa last year, supported by the Lampedusa municipality. And this brought also to an involvement of the University of Teramo to contribute as higher education in an initial training initiative for the students of Lampedusa and Linosa, which are for us is the first door from Africa to Italy and Europe for the peace ambassadors. And actually this is a project that is starting in this time with the support also of European funds. Critical needs. I go briefly to the end, actually, to don't take too much time. Critical needs means also to take into account the critical aspects. We have to consider that we are, let's say, a new partnership in the landscape of the partnership between Italy and Europe, and we have seen already the previous experience. And this has to face also the unexpected, unforeseen aspects like COVID, but also the new global challenges launched by other aspects, related to wars and so on. The complexity of the sustainability framework that we know, we have 17 SDGs to take into account, and obviously it's very difficult also to manage all of them in the same time. We have been discussing also during the organization of our of these conferences which topic must be the most important ones, and this means that all of them are obviously of equal importance, but to manage all in one day is absolutely difficult. The critical mass and effective impact of this initiative that needs to be, that actually was impaired by COVID, 2 years more or less of limited possibility also for us in Italy to meet the financial support, not of secondary importance, and the fact that we have to avoid the replications. So this means that we have to reinforce the partnership by a higher collaboration among us, but also with a new organization and new networks existing. And this means that in terms of needs, we have to bring the words written in the documents into the reality, trying to find really concrete solutions, develop initiatives and actions in between this event, this yearly event, and to strengthen the collaboration actually at all levels, also among us, in a mutual recognition of the specificities in terms of culture and knowledge and scientific peculiarities we have at academic and non-academic level. And this means also to boost the capacity building initiatives. This means that looking back at what we are, was the core group of the partners that signed the Teramo Declaration, we have to enhance all our capabilities. And I would like just to say that some steps have been somehow developed, and the community engagement and enlargement is somehow on the way. And I thank you very much. All the efforts carried out by the partners with the involvement here. We have IZS. We have ICOMOS also well represented, and we are really pleased to welcome them. And it's on the way, new collaboration also with other Italian organizations like the Cooks, which is a consortium of universities for cooperation for development, which is involving nowadays more than 30 universities in Italy under the CRUI organization. We have to set and enable environmental reciprocity to co-create knowledge and share effective practice, and we need actually to find the in which framework or cultural environment develop them. Capacity building is an important tool we have to strengthen in our actions because actually is a part of the social and economic development, and this has been recognized by international organizations, and this means best practice exchanges, promote mutual mobility. We have to put in place crowdfunding actions, valorize the human capital, competencies, knowledge and resources, and strengthen our partnership. Capacity building actions from this point of view are important frameworks that can actually allow us to finalize the main aims included in the THEMATIC Charter. To promote the growth of the youth in a no-border framework and favor actually the sustainable and economic growth of the African continent. And from this point of view, it's interesting, and we are willing as University of Teramo to start the collaboration, also to develop, to start projecting a new capacity building project for the next Erasmus calls that will be launched in October. So let's discuss also during lunchtime or during the breaks during today. That's all from my side, and thank you very much again for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Pittia. The word that really stood out to me was responsibility, and the responsibility academia has to guide the next generation, and of course, reciprocity, ensuring that all efforts are a two-way street. So the next speaker will be Dr. Maria Teresa Quinta, who will be talking about new concerns to cultural heritage through the 2019 to 2021 conferences. She's representing ICOMOS Italia. However, she's a former colleague of ours at ICOM.
Good morning to everyone. I think I have, first of all, to thank Paola because she is making much easier my work. So I will be much more quicker. Professor Pittia has been giving us an overview sort of from certainly an important academic point of view. What has been my work and my study, my analysis, has been really to go through the different conclusions that we had in the 3 years. So you can see, we have certainly is that a sort of image of the place, and and Professor Pittia has already given you the main milestone, but I would like also to add other milestone. I mean, we had, as you can see, between 2019 to 2020, but especially in 2021, we had a series of meetings, including this session in Lampedusa, but also a meeting in Benin that has been quite important. What does it mean that we had really different points of view? From one side, we have, for example, having had meetings in the university and sort of international. From the other side, we had also to test what we were saying in the other in other context, and that I think was quite interesting. That's why probably we are trying also to identify a few elements that could be important. As Professor Pittia said, the first one was a sort of let's see what can happen. So it was an opportunity for leaders from African higher education to exchange ideas with also local institution here in Italy for the case, but also international and regional organization. That was the participation that we had in 2019. Just to give you an idea, was quite, there was a very good presence for a small meeting. So I think that is important also to give you an idea of the participation from Africa. And I would say that from Italy and Europe at that time was less relevant. As as Professor Pitti has been identifying, certainly there was a sort of important idea to in relation to youth. What we are going to see that what we have been addressing to youth, now we are like really to arrive to building with youth. So we have certainly investing in youth, investing in skills, mobility, and access to market, and providing a right environment. That was the idea in 2019, as we were thinking. You will see how that has been evolved. This was the small poster that we did for 2020 that Paola Pittia was mentioning was done all online. And actually, also we started to think with youth, Euro-African partnership to promote the exchange of information, monitor the expansion of digital technologies. At that time, the question of digital technologies during COVID was quite an important aspect. Facilitate the creation and consolidation of scientific cultural center of excellence. The creation of a forum of experts. So was coming up the idea that this conference was not only one time idea, but probably this continuous conversation or discussion could have been something that was a little bit more regular and would involve a sort of working group of experts. There is a last one that I have to say that really was related to COVID-19, is to promote research on renewable energy resources. As you remember, as you can see in that period in the 2020 with the lockdown, the difficulty in reaching all the world was the capacity to have enough energy. Probably is a problem that we have also now, but for different reasons. In 2020, we also identified in the declaration, this is also taken by the different declaration that were proposed in those times. The need to, again, was repropose the invest in digitalization project for the training, creation and strengthening of cultural professional training. And this is something that is in line what was Professor Pittia was indicating. In that case, we had this COVID pandemic that was quite present. So we were thinking that would have been important also to make an analysis of the impact and the development of an economy that invests in young people and new professionals. Then, as I mentioned, there is the Lampedusa to improve the best training experience in cooperation with African countries among the conclusions. So I'm just quoting in this case. And then we have another important meeting that I was mentioning in Benin, which was quite interesting because then we started to identify possible project, but actually the group was a group that was, those who have been proposing were all what we say young people. And improved, that is something that came out from there. This is something that I'm just proposing to you because that was one of the results of the Benin strategic meeting. Improve decolonized standards of African heritage conservation. This is something that needs for us from here is is something that needs to be understood, but is something that has been coming again and again and again. Again, bridge digital, but in this case, started with the idea of bridge generational divide. That was the important thing. So I would say, yes, we should think that is not only, but is really an important one. Probably I put together bridge digital and generational divide, but I would say that generational divide should be the fourth element. Then we arrive, as Professor Pitya mentioned, to the broadening of horizon of charity for a new social planning. Let's consider, allora, while at the beginning we had a sort of commitment, and this is something that Professor Pitya has been mentioning, in the second part we had a sort of strategy, what was the idea to be tackled. In 21, we can say that we went to the call for action, what we do. Because now we can also continue to talk and continue also to agree that we need to have an exchange, develop training and whatever. But yes, what is the call for action? Again, the training is an important topic. Promote the development of extensive digitization initiative for training. And again, this has been sort of, as you can see, there are some sort of ideas that are coming again and again. So I just put them as a sort of final point. The strengthening of academic and professional training program for research, and this has been already mentioned by Professor Pitya. But now we are having a creation of forum of experts from Europe and Africa. It's not anymore just only addressing, but is working with, because there is also a need for European students, European experts, to share information with Africa. Professor Gaudia has given us an example, the Ihea. I'm teaching in the master, and actually the lecture of this master are learning a lot, and the group of people, the Ethiopian in particular, I just met them, yes, and so we are going to. I think it would be important to say that we have really to share information. So the certainly promote initiative at bilateral and multilateral level by investing in young people, and opportunities for shared narratives. And this is something that we really need this group of both European and African experts. Promote a research initiative to strengthen infrastructure and disseminate knowledge accessible to all, which is the action plan. Last year came up in two main lines. Establish a Euro-African working group involving representative of the partners. Promote a stable platform for dialogue and comparison to share inclusive strategies that take into account the variety of expression. So in this way is a sort of collaboration pair-to-pair involving, and this is I'm posing to you as a sort of minimal roadmap. Future, let's discuss it. I think in the afternoon we have time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria Teresa, and your thoughts on where do we go from here. Our next speaker will be joining us from online, Dr. Alessio Re from the Fondazione Sant'Agata for the Economics of Culture, and he will be speaking on education and training for sustainability, the role of youth and heritage.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I know that we are running a little bit out of schedule, so let me immediately share the materials which I prepared. I hope, I guess everything is fine with it. If not, please tell me. First of all, I'm gonna go pretty quickly as to save some time possibly, but let me say thank you first of all for having invited me and organization I represent, which is the Sant'Agata Foundation for the Economics of Culture. Thank you to the University of Teramo, to the organizers, to ICROM, with which we have a long-lasting knowledge and collaboration, of which we are very proud of and committed about. And I remember, as Maria Teresa was showing, the previous meeting online in 2020, I remember I was taking part and I was benefiting, as I am today, from the very rich and diverse input offered by the previous speakers. I'd like to be very concrete in my small contribution. Let me start. Since the topic of my intervention is about these three keywords that we see in the slides: sustainability, youth, and heritage, I was thinking to propose this reflection, which is at the core of my work. What is heritage? What is heritage about? A friend of mine a few years ago was sending me a picture of this place, which is a church, was a church in Homs in Syria after the destruction. So here there was a church, just the walls, the ruins of the walls are surviving, but the people is still gathering there to celebrate their ceremonies, their rituals. So what's heritage about? Is the ruins, is the people, is both of them? Of course, we can do, and we don't have time now to do all the reflections that we might pose on this fundamental question. But what we know is that heritage is something complex, is a source of identity, is a complex web of relationships, meanings, is evolving, because cultural heritage, the same definition of heritage, is evolving, and is acquired through its evolvements thanks to different means, including especially education. But the most important consideration, which is really at the core of our work, we try at least to put it at the core, is the last one. Heritage is a capital to invest in for our common future. Future is the last word Maria Teresa was using in her presentation. And being aware of this, we tried with our organization to set a specific program, a special program dedicated, as you see in the symbol, YES. YES stands for Youth Empowerment for Sustainability. So a special program dedicated to youth and to sustainability. In short, this is the sort of umbrella that we use for all those projects, activities targeted on youth, as to encourage the activation of bottom-up processes, having the youth, the young people as protagonists, increasing the awareness on the lands, on the communities, on the territories where people live, mobilizing energies, ideas, resources towards sustainable development, and creating possibly a network of operators, contributing to consolidate the networking among the different operators, having sustainable development as priority. How do we do this? It was an experiment, because our team, our organization is a research foundation. We never really worked with youth. We started in 2018, and the results were are still very promising. So the tools we are experimenting are pretty easy, because we don't need to invent anything particularly innovative for doing this. We use camps, so youth camps. We use the youth boards, which is the idea of involving some youth component into the decision making of big organizations like park authorities or museums. And then we use gaming, a little bit more in detail. We did quite a number of experiences under this YES program. The very first one was this youth camp in a mountain area, which is a biosphere reserve by UNESCO between Italy and France. So a transboundary camp. You can figure by the picture how does it work. And it is targeted for people between 15 and 18, let's say those people who normally are abandoning these areas for going to study into the universities or for working into the big cities. What's the rationale? What's the modality? The modality is about having a sort of week of dense interactive learning with the target, of course, of the 2030 agenda, but also a period to share in close relation with the local players, so not just youth and educators, but meeting and knowing, for instance, how these cheese makers do their job as to make the young and us ourselves, first of all, understand how rich are areas which in principle we might consider to be remote, not attractive, unpleasant, but actually they are not if we dig and know a little bit more. So we try to bridge between the new, let's say the younger generation and the older generation, knowing better each other, and we ask these young people then to formulate questions, demands to the decision makers, and to push them to find a proper solution, a proper answers. No, so in economic terms, this is we try to follow the principle of enabling the demand for future. I'm not gonna bore you with the details, but if you are curious, in our website, you may find all the information and the reports that we do for these activities. Luckily, after a first experiment, we realized that many other communities were facing similar questions. So we have been asked to sort of replicate this initiative, not just in this mountain area, which is 1 hour from Torino, from which I'm speaking now, but also in Trieste. We contributed to this Miramare summer school. We did it in some areas which are World Heritage Site in between Piedmont and Lombardia, and we are doing other experience like this. Then, since you mentioned it, we know that we are coming out from the COVID period and the lockdown, especially period. During that period, we try to adapt this format to the possibilities that we had to work basically online. So we invented this Youth Power project, which basically is a game, an online game using the technology, the smartphone, the social media, Instagram in particular, as to we wanted to do it not just because we love games or we love to be technological, but because we thought it was extremely important to maintain the dialogue with the youth, which was activated before the lockdown, as not to make it, as not to lose it. All this work from the local level was also kind of experienced at the international level. With UNESCO, we did a specific workshop in 2021 on youth engagement in UNESCO designated sites. It was a European Mediterranean workshop trying to enhance as much as possible the knowledge exchange among different groups of youth from different countries. What are we learning from all this? Of course, in our work is extremely important. We care a lot about understanding what we do, and especially if the impacts that we are generating are good ones, are good enough. So yes, let me say that in this case, I'm very convinced that we are doing something right, in the right direction, because of all the statement that you can read by yourself in this slide. But in short, because it's clearly an investment to us. Most of these activities are self-financed. Of course, there are also some other sponsors and contributors, but it's an investment which counts double. It's an investment for the present and also for the future. And this is very, very relevant. Just let me mention two other experiences which are going in this direction. The first one is beyond. Beyond is a word that I want to use because to make this happen at the international scale, activating cooperation, we are talking here about possible cooperation, existing possible cooperation between Europe and Africa. We need to go beyond our walls, let's say. We tried another experiment with Syria, with Syrian students. You can imagine all the reasons why we did it. And it is, because it is still working, a very successful, at least for us. I mean, maybe successful is a bit ambitious, or pretentious, but it was a very effective program we did with involving more than 100 of students, Syrian students from the universities still living in Syria. Again, here you see some figures, but for curiosity, you can access to our website. And the last point which I want to mention, because I wanted this presentation to be short but very concrete, because I believe that we must be concrete. We must be sort of obsessed by being concrete, given all the emergencies that we are facing. So the last initiative that we are doing is a fund titled EBLA, which is a fund, so money for making people, especially from developing or underdeveloped countries, to have access to knowledge, because we believe that having access to knowledge is the key for answering the question which was left by Maria Teresa before. What about future? We know that without knowledge we are not free, and we are not free to build the world we would like to, starting from our cultural resources. That's it. Thanks a lot, and I hope to have contributed to the works.
Very much, Dr. Ode, and thank you for sharing all of these incredible initiatives that you and your organization are undertaking. And I think that picture that you showed of Homs speaks for itself as to how important and powerful culture is to societies, and how we need that incorporated in our daily lives and valorized in order to progress and advance. So I would like to thank all of our speakers for this session.